One question tore Zimbabwe apart. In barbershops, on minibuses, at every family braai, Macheso or Tongai Moyo, who was the real king of Sungura? In the next 9 minutes, we settle the greatest debate in Zimbabwean music history. 2 kings, 1 crown, and a rivalry that made Sungura immortal. This wasn't just music. This was identity. This was pride. Zimbabwe produced a sound unlike anything else on earth, and these 2 men owned it. Sungura. The name means rabbit in Swahili. Fast, relentless, impossible to catch. Born in Zimbabwe's townships in the 1980s, a sound that was entirely its own. Twin guitars interlocking like conversation, a driving bass, drums that never let you rest. Sungura was built for dancing and for feeling. It was Zimbabwe's heartbeat. Mbare, Highfield, Chitungwiza. These weren't just suburbs, they were incubators of genius. And from these streets, 2 men would emerge to electrify a nation. Alick Macheso, extra Basso, a man who made the bass guitar sing like it never had before. Before the crown, he was a student, learning his craft inside the Kiama Boys. The Kiama Boys were legendary. Macheso absorbed everything: the rhythms, the discipline, the showmanship. Then one day, he decided he was ready to lead. He formed Orchestra Mberikwazvo, and Zimbabwe stopped. His sound was deeper, more complex. The bass lines were conversation, not just rhythm. Macheso wasn't playing music. He was preaching it. Albums like Magariro and Simbarazzo became anthems, played in every home, every car, every funeral, every wedding. Macheso wasn't just popular, he was essential. And then there were the feet. His Borrowdale dance moves became legend. Macheso would glide, he would stomp. He made the bass guitar, and his body speak the same language. By the late 1990s, much of Zimbabwe was ready to call it. Macheso was king. The stages were bigger. The crowds were louder. The bass lines were unmatched, but someone had other ideas. His name was Tongai Moyo, but Zimbabwe knew him as Dhewa, as Samanyamba. And from the moment he stepped on stage, everything changed. His band, Utakataka Express, moved like a freight train, fierce, unstoppable. Tongai's voice could shake a room and melt a heart in the same breath. Where Macheso was a master, Tongai was a magnet. His charisma was supernatural. Men cried. Women danced alone in crowds. He made everyone feel like the music was written for them. Now Zimbabwe had a problem. 2 giants, 1 crown, and every fan had to choose a side. Barbershops became debate chambers. Families argued at dinner. On every kombi, someone controlled the radio. If they played Macheso, Dhewa fans groaned. If they played Tongai, the Macheso faithful protested. The music was sacred and personal. Both men sold out shows. Both men moved stadiums. What was remarkable, extraordinary, was that Zimbabwe was big enough to love them both, even when it refused to admit it. But here is what the debaters often missed. Macheso and Tongai were not enemies. They were colleagues, friends even. The rivalry lived in the fans, not the artists. Macheso brought architecture, complex arrangements, a bass that was philosophy. Tongai brought fire, raw emotion, storytelling that broke your chest open. Sungura needed both. Macheso fans called their man the surgeon. Precise, masterful, untouchable. Tongai fans said Dhewa had something no surgeon could prescribe. Soul, pure, unstoppable soul. We need to stop here, right now. Before we go further, who do you think was the real king of Sungura? Tell us in the comments below. Macheso or Dhewa, and why? The late 1990s and early 2000s were Sungura's golden age. Both men releasing music, both men touring. Zimbabwe's townships vibrated with it every single night. Sungura crossed Zimbabwe's borders, into Zambia, into Mozambique, into the diaspora. Wherever Zimbabweans gathered, Macheso played. Wherever hearts needed mending, Tongai played. Then Zimbabwe changed. The economy collapsed. Fuel lines, bread queues, inflation that erased savings overnight. And yet, in all of that darkness, Sungura refused to die. When everything fell apart, the music held people together. Macheso's bass said, "We are still here." Tongai's voice said, "We will be okay." They were Zimbabwe's emotional lifeline. But behind the scenes, something was wrong. Tongai Moyo, Dhewa, was fighting something harder than any rival. His health was failing. The nation sensed it and feared the worst. In 2011, the news came that Zimbabwe had dreaded. Tongai Moyo, Dhewa, was gone. The voice that had comforted millions fell silent. A nation stood still. Candles were lit across Zimbabwe, in Harare, in Bulawayo, in Chitungwiza, at the graves of strangers who felt like family. Dhewa had belonged to everyone who ever needed music most. But Dhewa left more than grief. He left a catalogue of music that still plays in every corner of Zimbabwe. He left the proof that Sungura could be poetry. He left himself in the music forever. And Macheso, extra Basso, kept going, kept releasing, kept electrifying stages, carrying Sungura forward into a new generation, honoring the legacy that Tongai helped build. If you ask Zimbabwe today, most will tell you Macheso is the reigning king of Sungura. His longevity, his complexity, his unbroken reign, the evidence is undeniable. But, and this matters, Tongai Moyo was not a runner-up. He was the most beloved challenger a king ever faced, a man whose greatness made the crown worth fighting for. So who was the real king of Sungura? The real answer is this: the crown lives in the hearts of the people. And Zimbabwe, wise, music-loving Zimbabwe, had room for two legends. And today, young Zimbabweans are still picking up guitars, still playing those rhythms, still carrying Sungura forward, because two men loved it so much. They made it unforgettable. If this story moved you, subscribe to Legends of Africa, because stories like this one, true stories, African stories, deserve to be told, and you deserve to hear them. Untold stories, unmatched pride.